This is Julie. You're listening to part two of the story we started last week on the podcast. So if you want to play catch up, go back and listen to last week's episode and then join us for this week's episode. Or you can just start in this week's episode. I'm not going to tell anyone. Enjoy this story. Welcome to Garage Sales Unhinged,
where the characters are as quirky as the finds.
I'm Julie.
And I'm Jake.
Join us as we dive into the wild world of garage sales, yard sales, estate sales, and anywhere secondhand sales are happening.
From bizarre bargains to hilarious haggles.
You won't believe the stories we've got lined up.
Let's get unhinged. So, and honestly though, the truth is, this sort of thing, somebody finding an quote orphaned artwork, as they're called, in the wild, it has actually happened. It does happen. It's extremely rare. And that's why it made news in Minnesota. My God, somebody found an orphaned Van Gogh, question mark. It has happened. In fact, it happened not long ago. Something called the Lost Jackson Pollock.
Yeah.
This was a painting that was purchased in the early 90s at a California flea market for $5. And after that purchase, it was just by some lady that was just a retired truck driver. She spent decades of work trying to get this thing authenticated. And there's all sorts of twists and turns about that. A lot of libel, a lot of weird, crazy things. I mean, man, the art authentication industry is fun. It actually got authenticated. It is an orphaned Jackson Pollock painting. And if you want to get familiar with that whole thing, there's a documentary on it.
Oh, yes.
Called What the, and it's, like symbols as though, it's a swear word. What the bleep is, or who the bleep is Jackson Pollock. Might be worth a watch.
I like it.
This kind of thing does happen. It has happened. So then I got to thinking about the dates. And I absolutely am, Julie. Yes, I did kind of put myself into a storage unit and went down. I wanted to go down these conspiracy theory rabbit holes. And I honestly blame internet because we feel like you've got these tools to try to do those things. Surely it's out there. Surely there's something nefarious. Surely I'm the one to unearth something that no one else has found. And so you set about to do it and you're convinced you're going to find it. And, just regular everyday things appear much more nefarious than they really are. And that's what was happening to me. So it's like, what the date it was found was 2016. And why did they try to get it authenticated around 2019? So I did some more research along those lines. And I pulled my red string across the corkboard over to this pin. And I found out a company called Fever Labs. Have you heard of Fever Labs, Julie?
No.
So Fever Labs is the group behind something that you might have heard of and you might have actually experienced. I'm sure you've seen to some degree, and many of our listeners have too. Do you remember during COVID, one of the respites people had from being shut in was the chance, if you lived in a major city, to go to one of these immersive Van Gogh exhibits?
Yes, I've done those.
Yeah? Would you describe it for people that aren't familiar? What is that?
If you've never, so it's kind of one of those things. It's moving images of Van Gogh's artwork, digitally displayed on ceilings and walls and floors. And so it feels like you are in his paintings as things are moving around you, but you can just be standing there, sitting there, enjoying this scenery. It's very mind altering, I'm going to say, where you're like, oh, this is a lot closer than I was expecting to get, but also very beautiful. They also play music that coordinates with whatever you're seeing. It's actually a really neat experience, and highly encourage people to go do it because it's beautiful.
So Fever Labs put that together, and they had it was a successful run. I think it's still happening in cities, but it all over the place in a lot of big cities. They've done similar exhibits with other artists.
Yeah.
That experience opened in 2018. The year before, they someone tried to authenticate a Van Gogh painting. And I went, aha, this was a guerrilla marketing campaign to generate some interest in this immersive exhibit. Um, we needed in the news that there's, a lot of buzz around this lost Van Gogh that's been found. That's bullshit. That was me going down
That's
internet
you.
brain rabbit hole.
That's you being cynical.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It was just a coincidence. And honestly, the immersive Van Gogh exhibit didn't need the help. It didn't need some wacky, you know, marketing ploy like that to make it work. It was working. And honestly, how much effort are you going to go through on the warp and the lift of the canvas to just push this thing?
Yeah.
Seriously. So in doing some more looking at it, I was trying to figure out, okay, why is the Van Gogh Museum just so dead set and sure that this is not a Van Gogh? I couldn't find the criteria that they were using. And I just wanted that. It's like, okay, cool. You say no, fine, you're the experts, but tell me why. Tell any of us why. And then I've got my notes here. Oh, is this a forgery caught, quote, red handed? Okay, ready?
I'm ready. I'm on pins
In
and
doing,
needles.
in doing the research on Elimar, some researchers found something called, it was a red pigment known as PR50.
Oh, yeah. I'm familiar with that.
You're familiar with this pigment?
No,
Really? Okay.
no.
It was believed that this pigment was believed to have been patented about 1905. The problem with that is that Van Gogh died in 1890.
Ooh.
So a patent lawyer was brought in
Uh-oh.
and did some patent lawyer research.
As one does.
And they found that they actually found an undiscovered 1883 patent for PR50. So what seemed like a dead giveaway that this could not have been Van Gogh, they unearthed this extremely early patent for this pigment and went, that paint could have been available. So maybe this is a Van Gogh. So if nothing else, Elimar has led to better information for conservators. We
So
now
now,
know that paint existed earlier than we thought.
so now is there like a patent lawsuit against the earlier patent?
I don't know. Or maybe it's just the information is better. Maybe that patent, the 1905 patent, wouldn't have been granted if people knew about the 1883 one. I'm not sure how this stuff works. I don't know. I mean, like at some point back then, like, no, who's gonna sue? The 1905 guy, man, he's usually fishing. You're probably not gonna catch him.
Well, also like a patent for the paint. Was it in a different country? Was it in a, there was no internet for looking up patents, and I'm sure it
Right.
varied by whatever government was giving
Totally.
out that type of documentation back then.
So Elimar, the painting,
Yes.
is thought right now by some experts as being what is called an artistic translation of a different painting.
What?
Now, an artistic translation is one painting that looks it looks pretty similar to another painting. It's clearly inspired by. It's not meant to be a reproduction or duplication. It's an inspiration. It's a translation.
Okay.
Elimar, some experts believe, is an artistic translation of a painting by Michael Ancher or Anker, if you want to pronounce it that way. Uh, he made a portrait of a fisherman named Niels Gahid. Honestly, it's a different style of painting, but it's the same dude. If you
Interesting.
want to look it up, same dude, same everything. He's doing the same thing. He's got the same, it's at the same angle. It's the same posture, the same jaw beard, the same pipe, the same dejected look because he's a fisherman and this sucks. It's the same painting, just different style.
Hey, I like fishing. Fishing does not suck. I don't do it for a living though, so it might.
Yeah. Yeah. When it's work.
Yeah.
Are you planning a garage sale, yard sale, or estate sale and need some help? Look no further than Garage Sale Supply. They provide top-notch resources and expert advice to help you host the perfect sale. From pricing tips to promotional strategies, they've got you covered. Visit GarageSalesSupply.com and make your next sale a success.
So we're almost there, I promise. I ask you, what is authentic?
Well,
And
I feel like a museum has to tell me if it's what's authentic.
I would think so too. But I did appreciate the opportunity to go a little you know, wacky with this because it led me to read some stuff by a multidisciplinary designer, artist, and art historian named Renee Zapata, and pointed out a lot of really great things about the concept of authenticity.
Okay.
Uh, I'll sum it up instead of reading all of these notes, but essentially, we respond differently to what we perceive as authentic or original objects. And the key word there is perceive. That at some point, um, perception and authenticity really it's about what you expect. The example that Zapata brought up is one that Arturo also brought up, and it's that okay, say you've got two statues, ready?
Okay.
Two statues from the Hellenic period. They're 1,000+ years old. One has got some clear damage. It's like got a broken finger on it or something. The other one, also damaged, but that it's also repaired. It's been repaired at some point, between then and now. Is one more authentic than the other?
I would think the broken finger is the one that's more authentic
Why is that?
because the repair would have to have been done by another artist, assuming what the original intent was.
But are you going to discount the rest of the statue? And that was kind of the point of it. And that was to say, hey, look, if there's yet a third statue that is also like it's also from the same period, no damage whatsoever. Is it any more authentic than the others? They're all the same provenance, but some have interventions and some don't. Authenticity really depends on what you expect. Cool.
Yeah.
So this is around Elimar, and Zapata had a lot of other really cool things to say that I don't think I have the space to get into here, but it was really illuminating for me. And I went, okay, wait. So is Elimar just what you make of it? If you believe it's a Van Gogh, is it really?
Well, I mean, once I send my hand-drawn turkey in, if that gets authenticated, Jacob, I'm taking you to a steak dinner. Like,
All
I
right.
got me an authenticated Van Gogh turkey, hand turkey.
So here's
And then
another
we'll also know that the whole thing's rigged.
here's another pro Van Gogh theory.
Okay.
Elimar is a name of a character in a novel by Hans Christian Andersen called The Two Baronesses.
Well,
You're reacting visually. Are you familiar with this?
no, are you kidding me? I'm not that cultured. But that would make sense why this other artist did a similar type of painting if that character was described in such a way that it's like, oh, yeah, I kind of know what this person looks like in my head.
Now, according to some experts, the portrait was of a fisherman with an actual name. That Elimar in the Hans Christian Andersen novel wasn't necessarily a neck bearded fisherman.
Okay.
Um, I don't know. I don't know whether Elimar was or wasn't, a neck bearded fisherman in that novel. The theory is that Van Gogh took inspiration from Hans Christian Andersen's novel, and it has been documented that Andersen was one of Van Gogh's favorite novelists. That he took inspiration from it and painted Elimar on there as an indication as to, well, that's who this is. Thing is, so that's a theory on the pro Van Gogh side that this painting is Van Gogh. However, like Two Baronesses has been translated into a lot of languages over the years. It wasn't published in Dutch or German, both of which Van Gogh spoke and read. It wasn't published in that until 1848 or in 1849. And that is 40 years after the Elimar painting was painted. So that doesn't work out either. So you've got these warring factions.
Yeah.
You've got the pro Van Gogh people that are in the, pretty much comprised of the art collector and the LMI group that spent years and lots of money trying to get this thing confirmed. You've got the art historians, art experts, and the Van Gogh Museum saying, no, it's not a Van Gogh. On one side, you had, data science, tons of technology, all this money and time and energy and resources and microscopic, look at all this crazy stuff. And here's how the data all breaks down, making the argument that this is a Van Gogh. On the other side, you have art experts saying, hey, the bottom right corner where the Elimar is written is usually where a signature occurs, not a title. Oh, and by the way, there is a painter named Henning Elimar, a Dutch artist born in 1928 and died in 1989, and he painted this.
Jake, I feel like this could just be solved with a really good old-fashioned seance. Let's bring Van Gogh and be like, hey, listen, there's a hot debate. People are, what should have been an email, people are spending so many meetings trying to figure this out. Can you just tell us, bruh, did you do it?
So odds are it's not a Van Gogh. Odds are this was something painted by this guy named Henning Elimar. The space where Elimar is on the painting, that's where painters put their name. They don't put the name of the painting on the painting at all, or if they do, it's not down there. So the interesting thing to me about all of this, I mean, yeah, you got the intrigue as to whether or not this is a real thing. You've got, all of this, point and counterpoint. And I went down all these conspiracy theory rabbit holes that were fruitless. There's a really great article on Wired about this whole saga.
Mhm.
And they point out like this is an instance of the CSI effect.
I was actually sitting here thinking of like, man, all this work, all this effort. And in my head, I'm thinking of like the zooming in and out of microscopes and
Computer
test tubes
enhanced.
bubbling and all that stuff.
Enhanced.
I'm going, oh yeah.
So yeah, the CSI effect, if you're not familiar, is like a relatively recent phenomenon that is absolutely making a reference to the television show CSI. So what it means is we've noticed as a people, not just me and Julie, but we've noticed that since the prevalence of those shows, juries in criminal trials are more inclined to expect DNA evidence. Like it's just plentiful and out there and all over the place. And if you don't have it, well then, this can't be true. They can't be guilty. You don't have DNA.
Yeah.
And so our expectation is such that, hey, the hard data is all that matters. Expert opinion, institutional knowledge. Nope. Unless you've got the hard data, it ain't true. That's the CSI effect.
Yeah.
So this is a situation, the Elimar saga, which is ongoing, but is an instance where you have the technology is kind of out over its skis.
What does that mean?
You've got groups out there that are over relying on technology.
Gotcha.
That look, we can zoom in on the warp and the weft and do all these crazy things and look at all this stuff and completely miss the fact that Elimar down here is a name, not a title. And if I just Google Elimar painting before all this stuff blew up, I would have found Henning Elimar. And I would have seen other paintings of his that are in this style.
But I wanted it to be a Van Gogh.
And that's the thing. Uh, Noah Charney with Wired wrote a really, really good thing here that I'd just like to share real quick. He points out that art authentication is not straightforward. And unlike the hard sciences, that art history deals with probabilities. It's about connoisseurship, it's about competing expert opinions. And it's also an industry that is driven by financial incentive. That if unauthentic, if authentic stuff has a huge value, unauthentic stuff has zero value. So the imbalance between those two things has led to what he says, and this is great, a dangerous trend, which is hiring experts not to determine authenticity, but to affirm it. So he's saying that, yeah, the art collector, LMI group, and others in that camp have a financial incentive for this to be authenticated.
Right.
And so they're going into it not to answer a question, but to prove an answer they would prefer.
Well, but also, I mean, I get what he's saying, but who else is going to do that type of research and that scientific experiment? And I get it. Their reputation's also on the line that they want this to
Yeah.
become the thing because they worked on that masterpiece thing. But like, are you going to give it to your kid that has the little like mail-in microscope type stuff and be like, just scrape a little bit of paint, Tommy, don't ruin it? Like, no.
Well, that's the thing is like other experts of Van Gogh have looked at this thing and said, no, it's not. And the Van Gogh Museum has said, no, it's not. And people that might not even be familiar with Van Gogh have looked at it and went, yeah, but down there is where the artist's name goes, and that's an artist's name, and that's in his style. The epilogue on this is that LMI group continues.
Well, of course it
They're
does.
actually tripling down and putting more money. Are paying about $1 million to authenticate this thing.
Aha. Apparently they got out of the meetings.
Usually, authentication efforts cost a lot less than that. You asked about AI earlier.
Yes.
At some point in this whole thing, an AI firm did take a look at it. This group is called Art Recognition, and they trained their algorithm on like more than 800 verified Van Gogh paintings and almost 1,800 inauthentic images, and they confirmed no, not a Van Gogh. So, as just kind of a wacky follow up to what you brought to us a few weeks back, Elimar, it really seems like it's not authentic. And according to the experts in the room, it isn't. It's not to say, everybody, that these things aren't out there. Somebody bought a $5 Jackson Pollock in the 90s. So it can be done. It is out there. You still shouldn't throw anything away. And
That's not what we're saying. You should keep the things that bring you joy and you can use, and whatever you cannot use, you should try to share it with your community either through secondhand sales market or be able to give it away for free.
yeah, there's
But
that.
you don't need to hoard the things.
So yeah, the Elimar saga continues. If there's an update, I'm looking forward to not bathing for a day so I can look into it again. So no, I wanted to give you the update. Elimar Nomar is the verdict. As
Well,
far as I feel like it's not. I feel like it is not a Van Gogh.
I was going with a Van Gogh or Van No.
Oh, very nice. How about Vincent Van Faux?
Oh, awesome. So many options that we could do for this episode.
Well, that's it. That's what I had to share. Thank you for letting me get a little manic on this one. Look it up. Hey, still all the same, LMI is doing cool stuff. They have a really awesome website. They might not be right about this one.
Hey, that just goes to show you that having a cool, awesome website does not necessarily mean you are always successful.
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
That's
this
the
is good,
episode.
Jake. Thanks for bringing in the deets on the follow up of that initial story.
Oh yeah.
Still kind of mad that you did that, but we'll go with it.
Yeah, sorry. I'm gonna go sniff some stickers.
Okay. Bye, everyone. See you next